Okay, welcome, Frozen enthusiasts, to Geek Salad, our retro review of the movie Frozen. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jonna.
Yes, not Andy. Andy is unfortunately ridiculously busy this week, so I'm joined by my lovely girlfriend Jonna here.
Well, so did you see Frozen in the theaters when it was first released?
I did not actually. I saw it much later. Actually, um, saw it about a year ago. Um, year and a half ago. Um, and I just recently rewatched it on Disney Plus.
I snuck out and did what I did just yesterday with Frozen 2. I went out and caught the 9 o'clock show in the morning because I know it's not nearly as crowded and you get to see it early on.
Indeed.
And it was a wise decision both times because as you exit the theater, there's a stream of small children. Only this time for Frozen 2, they were all dressed up for the occasion.
Of course, in their Anna's and Elsa's dresses.
Indeed, and some were wearing the brand new ensembles from Frozen 2.
Oh wow, that's a quick turnaround.
Oh, well, I've seen that at the park, so it didn't surprise me too much. But their parents had definitely invested.
Indeed. But we won't go into Frozen 2 too much. That might be a later review. But for now, we're doing the first one. Frozen 1 came out in 2013 and was a massive success for Disney.
Oh, yes, it was.
It is the very first animated movie to make over $1 billion in the box office. Yeah. And it came out like around this time. Leave him alone. Sorry, I've got my cat on my lap and he's teasing the other cat. But anyway, yeah, Frozen. It came out in November, and I think it stuck around in theaters until like February. It was just week after week of number one.
It was a juggernaut.
Yeah.
And, I think we should address right off the bat the gigantic elephant in the room, the Elsa one.
Yeah.
Let It Go. Massively overplayed, and yet it's a hell of a song.
It is. It is. I mean, for all you might not like the song for how much it was overplayed, it is a solid song, and I still really enjoy it. I think it's a wonderful song, for female empowerment, but more than that, it's just a great song. And Idina
was
Menzel.
A blessing that they were able to get Idina Menzel.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of getting people who are professionals to sing because it damages it if they don't. And you've heard my thoughts on some of the non-professional singers that they've had in various vocal roles. So it was really a pleasure to have somebody who was a Broadway powerhouse.
Oh yeah.
Already.
I mean, if you've never seen her performance at the Tonys, the Tonys, where she does Defying Gravity from Wicked, she has got a voice that will not quit.
I was not privileged to see her in Wicked, but I did see her in another production, and it's quite an experience to hear her live.
And unfortunately, I have never heard her live. I've just heard the YouTube videos of her. But
it told you exactly where that character was in that instant.
Yes.
It gave you exactly what Elsa was feeling because she started out very glum. She was all alone. And then she started, because the elephant had already trampled out of the castle and
Yeah.
scared everybody to death, she started entertaining herself basically with her powers because she had no idea what she could really do up to that
Yeah.
point. Her entire childhood, from the time she accidentally injured her sister, and she was actually trying to save her in that moment, when she first through to the breakdown in the ballroom, she had been trying to conceal everything that she could do, anything that she could do, because she'd been traumatized by hurting her sister. She had a terror of hurting anybody.
Yeah. And like the
let's
trolls said,
let's face it, the fear was her enemy.
Yeah.
And yes, probably not the best way to phrase it to a small traumatized child, because it scared her to death. And in reaction, she withdrew from literally everyone, even her parents, who were trying to help her out and guide her, because maybe they were misguided about how they went about it, but they did want the best for their daughter. And so she had been so isolated and so afraid of her own powers, she'd never experimented with them.
Actually, not going in too much into spoilers, but Frozen 2 does kind of give a little bit more context into why her parents did what they did.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And but that was one of my favorite scenes. I know everybody likes the point where she plants her foot and the fractalization of the snowflake starts from that point. But my actual favorite point in that song is a little bit earlier, where she's created these wisps in the air, and then she basically just spreads her hands and clears it, and everything collapses like so many beads. Like she's like a small child clearing a magnetic board. She's just done.
Yeah. But for me, just the creation of her ice palace, though, that is some of the most stunning animation I've ever seen in my life.
It really is impressive, especially I heard a discussion with some of the animators, and they had gone and studied how crystals, snowflakes actually seed to, and where they build upon each other and how they spout. And that they incorporated when they were creating the palace.
Actually, just rewatching it again not too long ago, that part is just beautiful. But also, towards the end, when the ice starts like freezing inside the castle, that the ice are just like kind of like closing off the hallways. That part is also beautifully animated. I mean, this entire movie is just a gorgeous movie to behold.
Yes, visually very stunning. And it was interesting to, having seen Frozen 2 now, it's interesting to compare and contrast. The other movie is equally visually stunning, but it's a completely different color palette, a completely different feel.
Oh, yeah.
In this one, they've got such a color palette of the blues and the purples and the whites and the silvers. It gets that whole feeling of ice and snow, and it's a chilly color palette, and they go to the mat with that.
Yeah. Well,
the one place you don't see that is when they meet the trolls.
Yeah,
perhaps it's very troll magic.
Yeah, very green, very gray, very brown.
Yes, it's like the eternal winter that got set off everywhere else isn't hitting that spot.
Those trolls, they know how to deal with magic, sort of.
Well, the trolls are an interesting thing. I was rewatching it, and I had forgotten that Sven and Kristoff were around the very beginning. They witnessed what happened with when Elsa and Anna and their parents went to the trolls.
Mm. And that kind of comes back
And
later
they
on.
had actually, one of them had basically, "You're cute, I'm keeping you." And then shushed him because she wanted to watch.
Yeah, I do like how it comes back later on when when Kristoff is taking Anna to the trolls, and Anna's like, how do you know that they can help? He's like, because I've seen them do it before. And ironically, he's seen them do it to the same person before. He just doesn't know it.
Yeah, he has no clue that it's the same person.
Give me 1 second. My cats are not going to let out until I let them out. So be right back.
All right. Well, the movie was interesting in that, unlike what so many people said, it's not the first sister movie. It's not the first movie where a girl didn't need a guy. But it is the first movie where it's following the relationship. The story is very small on Frozen. It doesn't branch out too much outside a core group of characters.
Mm-hmm.
And even a very small geographic area. I was saying that this was not one where, there was a lot of stuff attributed to it. It's the first Sister Act movie. Well, no, we saw a lot of that with Lilo and Stitch.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't the first one where a girl didn't need a man. Mulan trod that ground a long time before. But I think it was unique in that it combined those. And I thought it was really unique in that most Disney movies, the villain straight off the bat. This time, they punked everybody.
Yeah, they gave us a red herring in the Duke of Wesselton.
I mean, he was a villain. He just wasn't the major villain, and you didn't know it until the very end.
That's what I really, really did enjoy about this movie, is that like the first two acts, yeah, you kind of see where the movie's going. It's following a pretty set story, tropes, and then that third act, they starts twisting everything up. The bad guy, the good guy becomes the bad guy. The love connection is not the love connection that you think it's going for. It's great how it just twists everything up, but everything still comes together in exactly the right way.
It's interesting that it came together as well as it did, because when they started out, they were going to do an entirely different storyline. They were originally going off the idea of the Snow Queen fairy tale. And Elsa would have been the villain in that piece.
Very much so, yeah. And Anna would have been the hero.
But I guess it was mainly Let It Go that helped them realize where they were going wrong, or at least differently at the time, and that wasn't what they wanted to do. So wow. And I wonder if some of the early images that you see of Hans were animated earlier on in the storyboard process, because I was watching very carefully his first interactions with Anna, and when she takes off because she's running late to her sister's coronation, he's just standing there in a boat that's only being held up by the fact his horse is standing on it.
And then he lets him go.
Gotta love Disney horses. But he has a moment of, oh no, when he lands in the water. And when he comes up, he does not look sly or upset or concerned. If anything, he looks besotted.
Mm.
And I can see why that gave rise to some arguments that the trolls may have been actually the bad guy, because there was a very specific line in the Fixer Upper song about get the fiance out of the way,
Mm.
and the whole thing was. And actually,
Well, you know,
that
hey,
whole number is very interesting. That
yeah,
doesn't get as much love as,
it's
but
not my
it's an
favorite.
interesting song.
It's not my
I laughed
favorite
and
song.
laughed. I laughed and laughed when I first heard the line about when they're querying Anna in it about why she's not falling for Kristoff. Uh, and is it his thing with the reindeer that's a little outside of nature's laws? And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe Disney actually slid that into that.
But hey, I will say, reindeers are better than people. Can we say? Can we? You know, we went off about Idina Menzel. Let's go off about how awesome uh, Kristen Bell, uh, Jonathan Goff, Josh Gad, and who is Santino Fontana. The just the cast.
Oh, the vocal cast was great.
Yeah. And I hadn't realized that Kristen Bell was such a great singer.
No, I guess I wasn't familiar with her before that, and now I was a little worried going into Frozen 2 because I'd been watching The Good Place, which she stars in, and I was like, am I going to keep hearing her character from The Good Place? And I didn't. I got sucked into it, and she was just Anna.
Yeah.
But I will give a plug in this moment for The Good Place. That's a great show, and they're on their last season. Oh
yeah.
well.
Andy really was taken aback by how good that show is.
Well, it's reinvented itself every season.
Yeah, I still haven't watched any of it though. I've watched like a few clips here.
But no, the cast was really good. Anna is just perky enough to be the Disney princess, even though she's not officially part of the Disney princess line because Frozen is its own separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
And with Elsa, you have she's the older, she's the quieter, she's the more contemplative, partly because of the life of isolation that she lived. Whereas Anna she's younger, she's bubblier, she's perkier, and she's screaming for human contact.
But I do love how like every now and then they have those little sister moments. You know, more so in the second movie, but in this movie, every now and then they have those moments, and when you do, like you do feel that they are definitely siblings. I mean, they have that.
The chocolate moment is probably the most obvious example of that. What's that wonderful smell? Chocolate. And being a confirmed chocoholic myself, I felt that moment very deeply, as you well know.
Wait, you love chocolate? How did I not know this?
And it was also a nice little Easter egg that it looked just like Wreck-It Ralph's The Mountains from the Sugar Rush game.
Yeah.
So you had to appreciate that. But that's kind of the sad part, is that they have those moments where it's clear that they're linked together, but they've been apart so long that Anna doesn't even really know how to talk to her sister at first, or after the coronation. When they're standing together, she's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's sad that she was more comfortable with literally a complete stranger in Hans than her own flesh and blood.
Yeah. I mean, to go from having all those memories, yeah, they were altered memories, but memories of being, the closest best friends, and then suddenly, like that, she's locked in a room, and there's just this barrier, a literal barrier between them, and Anna's just been spending her entire life just wondering what happened, what changed, and unfortunately, the trolls kind of did their magic too well.
They did. And so she remembers the fun, which they promised to leave her, but then it's suddenly gone, and she has never understood why.
Yeah, in a sense, that fun part, still leaving the fun kind of makes it even worse.
Yes, it was very painful to her. And yet you had to admire the fact that she knows in her soul that Anna, or that her sister, would never intentionally hurt her.
All
now,
right.
It's true that Elsa had, in the course of the film, twice as accidental, but it was never her intention to do so.
Right.
The first strikes her was when they were playing as children, and she literally begs Anna to slow down, and Anna's not listening to her because she's so caught up in the moment and the fun she's having. And Elsa is trying to keep her from falling from a great height, and she misses her aim and strikes her head.
Right. And then the second time, she feels she's a danger to everyone around her, and she just wants Anna to get out, and she just loses control of her powers because the fear is she's afraid of her powers, and that's what means she can't control it, unfortunately.
Can we say that she goes the gamut when she makes Olaf based on childhood memories, but for defense, you gotta love Marshmallow, who is a scary piece of work. He never badly hurts anybody, and I felt really bad when he was fighting against Hans, who literally whacks his leg off, poor thing. But he would be scary as all get out if you were facing him, and yet Anna doesn't back down an inch. Nope. You got one of my favorite lines from Kristoff is when he's telling her to basically slow down, feisty pants. And she doesn't, of course. She throws a snowball and sets Marshmallow off.
I don't think a snowball is going to do much against a giant creature of snow.
Well, she had to throw something, and that was what she had.
I do kind of wish that just once Olaf would have called Marshmallow Big Brother.
Well, he sort of does that in one of the Frozen shorts.
Oh.
Essentially, the Frozen Fever short, when they get all the snow geese, and collects them all at the end and takes them so that they can be seen. And they stay, apparently, with Marshmallow. And he gave every one of them a name.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And again, not giving any spoilers for Frozen 2, but you do briefly see them again.
They do. And I have to say, for a character who is as minor as Marshmallow is, I love his after credits sequence. He's the saddest creature. He's coming in. He was injured. He's limping, if you notice, when he comes into frame. Yeah. And there he spots the tiara that Elsa tossed away. And he reaches down and picks it up and studies it, and then slowly raises it and puts it on his head, and then just beams. And there's such joy in that moment with his tiara.
What I love even more, though, is like
Marshmallow is a Disney princess.
When he's coming in, he's got all of his all of his icicles out. And as soon as he puts that tiara, They all come in. He's just normal, happy guy. Back to normal again.
Yep. He's off duty and he's fabulous. Now, when you get to the end, it's interesting too that they went to the trouble to actually Hans went to the trouble to actually capture Elsa. And his con goes far enough that he tells everybody that Anna died and that it was Elsa who did it. And he was sort of, in theory, that could have happened. He was jumping the gun quite a little bit there, but it seemed likely, I'm sure, in his estimation.
And he also made sure that they all knew that he and Anna married right before she died, with no witnesses, of course. But who cares?
Yeah, to ask who performed these vows, right? But of course, no good prince would lie about these things. But as Anna found out, much to her sorrow, he was definitely not a good prince. I think every woman in the country who saw that just wanted to smack him in the instant when he leans forward like he's actually going to kiss her. Oh, Anna, if only there were someone who loved you. And it's just so like he's pitying her for being that naive. And yeah, to borrow from another movie, from Clue, flames on the side of my face. You just wanted to smack him so hard in that instant.
Yeah. But then that moment between Anna and Olaf, though, when he's saying, like, you don't know what love is. Love is when you are willing to sacrifice yourself for someone else.
Putting someone else's needs ahead of your own.
Right.
And he is kind of the prime example of that. He is so innocent, so pure. I mean, he's literally a newborn, basically. Yeah. And again, we all know that changes a little over the course of Frozen 2.
Yeah.
But in this one, he, for all that is, and for all that Anna has attained, she's at least a teenager. I'm not sure of her exact age. Somewhere around 18, I think.
I would guess so, yeah.
Because Elsa's 21.
Yeah.
And he understands that sort of instinctively.
Yeah. Some people are worth melting for.
Yeah. He understands the concept of love, even though he understands very little attention, but he gets the feeling.
Yeah. Which is what really kind of makes that kind of the climax of the movie so impactful, in that, they're all on the frozen lake. Anna sees Kristoff coming forward to give her the kiss of true love, and then she sees Elsa being about to be killed by Hans, and she realizes she has to put Elsa's needs before her own.
Literally, she's willing to sacrifice her life, and she has to know that it's going to be a sacrifice of her life, because she's so weak. What could she actually
she was already,
other than absorb the blow?
She was already turning into ice, so she knew that if she went to Kristoff, she would get the kiss and she would save herself. But if she went to save Elsa, she would turn to ice. But she still went. And
yeah, because it's unthinkable to her a world without her sister.
It's a really powerful ending, I think. I really, really enjoy that climax. Beautiful Act 3.
Yes. And I've always kind of wondered how, they animated it, that just as Anna turns to pure ice,
Hmm.
and Hans is going to connect. It's like through some force of magic, he never actually quite connects, and he's knocked backward hard.
Oh, no, his sword actually breaks on her frozen hand because she's solid ice. Solid
It
ice.
shattered. Yeah,
Yeah.
but by rights, it shouldn't have shattered. She should have.
I think solid ice is pretty darn strong. Plus, it's magic ice, so
That's the magic going on there.
yeah.
But
I don't think too much about it. Trust me.
but I mean, it literally knocked him for a loop because he was barely getting to his feet by the time everybody else had. By the time Anna had thawed, they'd figured out what was going on, and Anna marched over and gave him her opinion of the subject.
The only frozen heart around here is yours. She turns around and then poof.
Checks him.
I just love that little
Yes, and it was equally satisfying then to see him get thrown into the brig of the ship, and that we don't know who the anonymous person was, Lord or whoever it was.
Yeah.
We'll discuss this with his big brothers and see what they have to say.
A fitting end.
It doesn't sound like, as much as he made it sound like to Anna, it doesn't sound like his brothers were actually in on the plot.
No.
He had an idea. They were in on it.
Well, I don't think they cared. I mean, basically, he's just the runt. He's the runt that three of them pretended was invisible for 3 years. I do feel a little sorry.
Maybe his horse knew better. Maybe his horse knew better, and that's why I dumped him in the drink.
But
Disney horses are usually pretty wise about these sorts of things.
Especially Disney horses. They have horse sense.
They do. As again was evidenced in the Frozen Fever short, the very end of it, where a very ill Elsa blows the bugle horn, and that was an interesting bit of phrasing there. Not bugle, but bugle horn, and essentially launches the world's largest spitball at over toward the Southern Isles, and it nails him and knocks him into a pile of horse dung, which he was apparently being forced to shovel. And a few more Disney horses were really amused by what had happened to him.
Of course. Again,
no wonder he packed up and went to San Francisco. Oops, Easter egg.
Yeah, Disney horses are remarkably
they're intuitive.
Yeah. So anyway, that was Frozen. If you liked it as well, then give us a big thumbs up. If you didn't like us, still give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe down below. I would go through all the list of things where Geek Salad is found, but I'm not Andy, and so I don't really have it all off the top of my head. But Stitcher, the Podbean app, here on YouTube. Go back and watch another video and watch what Andy says, because he does it a lot better than I do.
Well, I have to say, for all of you ladies out there who think you can never be a Disney princess, just remember that Frozen shows that Disney look at me when they sleep. It was the first Disney movie to ever have a princess with real bedhead. You got to give them points for that.
I do love the kind of like callback they did in Frozen 2 to that.
Yep.
Anna is not a quiet sleeper.
No, she is not.
So anyway, I would like to give a big thanks to Jonna. Thank you so much, my lovely girlfriend.
Thank you for having me on here. I really enjoy Frozen, and I'm a fan of all things Disney.
Oh, yes.
It's
As am
always
I.
fun when we can participate.
So, until next time, I'm Mike.
And I'm Jonna.
And go forth and be nerful. Peace out. And